Hey, I'm going to be going away for a little bit. I figured I'd make some tier lists for you before I go, so I hope you all enjoy. All right, jump right into it. Today, we're going to be doing the Titan. Now, I don't main the Titan, but I get killed by them enough in PvP to kind of know how broken some of their exotics are. And they're obviously also very, very good in PvE. Honestly, in my opinion, one of the best classes in Destiny 2 right now, unless you count Well of Radiance. But just overall classes in general, I think Titans are for sure the way to go. All right, so starting off with ACDO feedback vents. This is an exotic that you get melee hits, you build some energy up. So my melees, it kind of releases like a pulse wave. I see some people run this. It's not the greatest in either PvE or PvP. If you can make it work, maybe B spot. I think personally, I'm gonna put it in C spot. Compared to some of these other Titan exotics we're going to go over later in this video, there's just no reason you should run this over them. And in PvE, they're just kind of there. Now, this is going to be a PvE and PvP tier list, just like an all-around overall tier list. So hopefully you get a good idea of what exotics are good and what's not. So now we have Actimorag. I know a lot of people like this. I don't think it's as good as some people make it out to be, but it is fun because you just get pretty much infinite ammo in your auto rifles and machine guns. So I think it definitely deserves going to B tier spot. I don't think it's like the best in-game thing. If Xenophage is ever in the meta again, Actimorag probably get bumped up to A, but Xenophage just isn't as good as it used to be. But, you know, it's still like a relatively fun and decent exotic. Now we have the Aeon Gauntlets. This is going to be S tier in every single video. You can just generate heavy ammo at all times. Maybe for this season specifically, you don't need it as much because Elusive Finisher's in the game, but when it goes away, they're still going to be very, very good. Instant Skull Fort. I honestly love this exotic. I would argue it's S tier. Maybe you can go into the A tier spot. You get infinite melee energy if you get melee kills. It works really, really well playing into melee builds. Obviously, you also get health back when you get melee kills. It's a very fun exotic. I will put it in A tier because I don't think it's as good as some of the other exotics that will go in S tier, but it's kind of in the middle in my opinion. Now we have Antaeus Wards. This very good for PvP. It's kind of whatever in PvE, but for PvP it is extremely good. You can block supers, you can block damage. It's really good if you're shotgunning, and I think it definitely deserves to go in the S tier spot. It is annoying to play against, and if you have somebody that's good with them, they are very, very strong. They did get nerfed, but they are still very good. Now we have Armamentarium. Armamentarium is an exotic. It's very simple. You just get an extra grenade charge. That on its own is really good, but there are other exotics that are better than that, but that still is really, really good for both PvE and PvP. So I think it definitely deserves to go in the A tier spot. Now we have Ashen Wake. Now this is an exotic that turns your fusion grenade into like a fastball grenade. It explodes on impact. You can throw it really quick. If you get fusion grenade kills, you get a bunch of grenade energy back. A lot of people use this just for AFK farming, but overall it's honestly a pretty good exotic, especially with the Ruined Flames buff. In PvP you can set up some pretty fun stuff with this, so you can just get one shots with it over and over again. Obviously that's a little bit more challenging to do, but in PvE it's really fun. So I think honestly it's either between A or B. Like, it's definitely not the greatest thing and it takes a little prep to use, but it is a very fun exotic. Yeah, I think I'll put it in B tier spot. I'm sure there's some people that have specific grenade builds out there that absolutely adore this, and I think you could argue it should go in A. But now we have Titan's Ramparts. This without a question is going in S tier. These things have been broken for the longest time. I think people are finally starting to come around to realize how absurd they are. I think the Titan Barricade in general is absurd. The fact that it even does damage to you is kind of crazy, but these let you shoot through the shield. Yes, it does lower the health. There's really no playing around this. You can take a Haka Breach armaments weapons or an anti-barrier weapon, which is pretty much your best option to try to kill it. That's literally one of the reasons I love one of the first crafted shotguns you can get with Haka Breach armaments, because it can just one-shot the shields. But being able to just place a shield from far away, shoot an enemy with Dead Man's Tail, yeah, there's not much competing with that. Now we have Crest of Alpha Lupi. Crest of Alpha Lupi is an exotic that, again, it's not bad, it's not the greatest, but it is fun, especially paired with something like Void, because you get the Bastion Overshield. What this does when you pop your class ability, you create a burst of healing, and you will create more orbs of power, which is also nice for a team play. So it's a very supportive base exotic, and I think if you do play around it, I think honestly it can go in the B tier spot. It definitely is not treading towards bad. Like, I think it is like good, but on the lower end of good. So I think B is a pretty good spot for that. Now we have Caress of the Fallen Star. This one's simple. Your Thunder Crash gets a lot more damage, and you get an overshield once you get your Thunder Crash. For PvE, it is definitely S tier. PvP, obviously you don't really need it as much, but I think for PvE it's just really, really good. You pop this on, do some extra damage. It's pretty much in the rotation of any arc based Titan build, because you can also just swap it off for one of the other exotics really fast that we'll get into later. Yeah, it's just really good. Now we have Doomfang Punches. This is another one of those exotics where it's like, it's good, but you don't see a lot of play with it though, because the super that it takes advantage of, it just isn't like as good. But you can't pretty much get infinite at clear with this, because you can pretty much keep your super up all the time with throwing your shields like crazy on Void. I think overall, like, it's probably just a B tier exotic. It's good, but you're never really going to use it over other stuff. Now we have Doom Marchers. Doom Marchers, again, this is just by far an S tier. It has got nerfed. They're still really good. They're also like not even bad PvE, because that chain lightning can do a good amount of damage. But in PvP, you get that sprint speed, slot speed. You punch an enemy, you chain lightning everywhere. You can kill multiple enemies with it. They're very, very strong. Now we have Eternal Warrior. Now we've had a lot in S tier. This is going to be our first F tier spot. This is just when you pop Fist of Havoc, you get an overshield. A lot of people use this if they swap to it when they get their super, but other than that, there's no purpose. This thing is bad. It needs a buff desperately, and that's why it's definitely going in the F tier spot. Now we have Hollow Fire Heart. This used to be one of the best exotics in the game, but now with other stuff being out that's based around solar, it has kind of went down a little bit, and I honestly think it should go in the B tier spot. I could see the argument moving it to A, but overall, it's good, but you're never ever gonna run it over literally any of these other exotics we're about to get into. And that exotic is Heart of Inmost Light. Now this exotic is very controversial. It is extremely strong. You get ability damage, ability regeneration, barricade health, literally anything you can think of whenever you just use your abilities. It lets you spam infinite abilities 24/7 to do a lot of damage. It is by far going in the S tier spot. In PvP, it's still really good. It's not as potent as it is in PvE, but in PvE, you can run things like Arc with Storm Grenade, which do an absurd amount of damage. You can throw infinite amounts of them. If you need to pop your super, just quickly swap to your other exotic chest piece. You can literally put it right beside it in your inventory slot, and now your Thundercrash does more damage. This is pretty much the go-to for any Titan build at this point in the game, unless you are playing a Solar 3.0 base build, but this is just still very, very strong. I would also argue that this is just the best exotic in the game for PvE on any class in general. Heart of Inmost Light is that powerful. But now we have Helm of Saint 14. This is actually a pretty good exotic for supporting your team. Your Water Dawn gets an overshield, which is very, very nice. You can also blind enemies that come in that bubble, which is also good for your survivability. Also, your team's probably too if everybody's in it. So I think it definitely deserves to go in the A tier spot. If you are playing around a Water Dawn build and Water Dawn becomes the meta again, I think you will see this ran a lot more because its benefits are pretty good. It also does work with your like shield for your other super, but no one really runs it for that. But now we have Hoarfrost Seed. This is one of my favorite Titan exotics. I don't think it's S tier. I definitely think it deserves the A tier spot. It turns your barricade into basically a stasis wall. You could use that wall for multiple benefits. I actually posted a build the other day on my channel that involves this. You can get a lot of benefits, get overshields, damage reduction. It also works as a rally barricade. It's very good for DPS situations. It's extremely good for defensive situations. I really, really like it. I would definitely recommend giving it a shot. Now we have Icefall Mantle. These exotics coming out, we thought they were going to be strong, but basically you can use your class ability to get a huge overshield, but you can't sprint while you're in that overshield. So yeah, you might as well just not use them. So I think they definitely deserve to go in the D tier spot, because not having mobility in a FPS is pretty much a detriment, but you do get a overshield, which is nice. It kind of makes up for it. So that's why I think it goes in the D tier spot. In PvE, you might can make some fun stuff with this, but I just don't think it's worth it when you have other stuff you can use. Now we have Kefri's Horn. This exotic is not the greatest. It does have a pretty cool interaction. You can just, throw out your barricade. You put like a line of fire out, and in the Lightfall trailer, they put out the barricade, a strand line came out, so maybe this will synergize with it. Maybe in Lightfall this becomes the brand new meta. I think it definitely deserves going to C tier spot, because I feel like it is definitely better than D and F, but it's definitely not the greatest. But now we have Lion Rampant. These exotics are very strong, both PvE and PvP. PvE, they're good for jumping puzzles. PvP, they're extremely annoying to play against, especially with Dead Man's Tale. I definitely think they deserve the S tier spot. It lets you do some crazy things in PvE, get into areas you're not really supposed to get in. And on top of that, PvP, you can just fly around and hip fire Dead Man's Tale like crazy. Very, very good. Now we have Lorelei Splinter's Helm. This exotic got nerfed. It is still very, very good. If you stand in a sunspot, which they also make sunspots when you get low health, you're just unkillable. The restoration you get from it, all the healing, you are pretty much invincible. One of my friends I rate with literally runs this pretty much all the time, and we always meme about how we're trying to wipe we just can't, because he just cannot die. Like, you're pretty much unkillable if you have this helmet on, even after the nerf. Now we have Mask of the Quiet One. Mask of the Quiet One was a pretty good exotic back when it launched, but it is fallen down dramatically ever since, you know, more exotics came out. The metas have changed. It's definitely not bad. You definitely can get some benefits out of it, but what it does, you take damage, you get ability regeneration, and when you're at low health or the red health, you basically refill your health a little bit. It's not a lot, but it does something. So it's C tier spot for me. It's not the greatest thing, but it's there. Now we have Mark 44 stand asides. These get a overshield after you sprint and you use your melee cooldown. You get half your melee back if it's like a shoulder charge based melee. They're not bad. Again, they're not the greatest. They pretty much just let you secure a shoulder charge, which is, okay. Sprinting will get that overshield, which I guess could be kind of annoying to PvP, but C tier spot. Again, they're kind of just they're definitely leaning towards the bad side, but they're not bad. Now we have no backup plans. No backup plans are a fun exotic, really plays into our overshield. You get a shotgun kill, you get granted overshield. Shotgun kills will get you melee energy back, so you can proc that overshield again. If you play in a Void 3.0, your overshields can be really strong as well. And I think it's a pretty good exotic. You don't really see many people running it in PvP or PvE. That's just because other stuff is better. So I think it definitely deserves to go in the B tier spot, because it is good, but other stuff's just better. And that's a running theme with the Titan exotics. Now, One-Eye Mask, this is not gonna be the running theme for this one. This is S tier. You pretty much get wall hacks. You get an overshield when you kill an enemy. It has gotten nerfed a good amount, and it is still one of the best exotics in the game. It's also not even bad for PvE, because you do get that overshield for survivability. Definitely recommend run that. Now we have Path of the Burning Steps. These exotics, basically, when you get solar kills, you can get a buff that basically just increases your solar damage. It does stack with pretty much everything, I'm pretty sure. And it's pretty fun. It also does have the benefit so you don't like get slowed as much. And with dust fields being as strong as they are now, maybe you can get out the slow a little bit easier, and you take less damage when you break from freezing, I'm pretty sure. So I think they deserve the A tier spot. They're pretty good for PvP, simply due to the stasis stuff. But for PvE, getting that damage bonus is also nice. And with more stasis enemies, coming in the game, I could also see the secondary benefit being good as well. Now we have Peacekeepers. Peacekeepers is definitely an S tier. If you're a true Titan man, you run SMGs, you know how strong these are. You just get an absurd amount of handling for your SMGs. You don't have to reload the thing, and the movement speed you get, it's very nice. It is a very fast-paced exotic. You do have to play in the SMGs. PvE is definitely not the greatest, but for PvP, if you see a Titan that has good stat distribution, that seems like they know how to play the game, and you see these equipped, you best be scared, because they are very strong. But now we have Peregrine Greaves. Peregrine Greaves, see a lot of people swap to them in PvP, so you can just kill an enemy in their super. They're also pretty good in PvE. If you build around them, you can just like one-shot a champion. They would be an S tier if it wasn't just like a swappable exotic and you'd have to build into it a lot, because the damage you get from them is extremely nice, but I just don't think it's worth it to try to build into it all the way when you can just swap to it. So A tier is good for it. Now we have Phoenix Cradle. I like Phoenix Cradle a lot. They basically extend your sunspots duration. Your teammates can also take advantage of sunspots. I think it's a very good supportive base exotic. I think it definitely deserves the A tier spot. Most people don't use it because of things like Lorelei and other exotics, but I think they are really good. Now we have Point Contact Cannon Brace. Honestly, this exotic may be F tier as well. I might see the argument for D since it at least does something, but I'm going to throw it in F tier. It's very bad. It desperately needs a buff. It tries to do what a lot of exotics do into one, but all the benefits it gets just aren't that good. You get melee energy back when you get power melee kills. You might as well just use Inspirable Skull for it to get infinite melee energy back. It chains lightning when you get melee hits. You might as well just use Doom Marchers if you try to do that, because it's better. They do look really cool though, but I just think they need a massive buff. But now you have Precious Scars. This exotic's honestly not that bad. When you res a teammate, you basically give them an overshield, I'm pretty sure, some giant aura that heals them. It's a very good supportive base exotic. On top of that, if you get kills that matches your subclass type, you also will heal a little bit. In things like Rift, this is honestly really strong. At Trials, you could also make it work. Again, it's kind of one of those swappable exotics. You can just swap to it, get a res off. I think it deserves the B tier spot. It's definitely not the greatest, but it's also still pretty good. Now we have Second Chance. They have buffed these. Now the shield will actually, pierce through a Grandmaster champion. What it does, you get an extra shield throw, and they get anti-barrier capabilities. The problem is that it's really hard to actually hit those because of the time it takes for the shield to get there. You know, if they ever buff that, I think it can go a little higher, but I think for right now, it's a pretty good C tier spot. Now you have Severance and Closure. This exotic, when you get a finisher, you basically make enemies explode. When you get a power melee kill, you make enemies explode. It's not the greatest. You can make it work, especially something like Hammer, since you pretty much just always have infinite hammers. It can be really fun, but again, C tier spot, you're really never going to run over other stuff. Now you have Stronghold. Stronghold is an exotic in PvE that is really good if you build into it. PvP, I guess, is okay if you swap to him with the sword, but you basically just get a bunch of damage reduction, and you can become unkillable if you build around it correctly, specifically with a stasis build. I personally don't like these a lot, but I know they are really good in the capability of them, so I think they definitely deserve to go in the B tier spot. Maybe A if you're really good with the build, but since you have to really focus on making that build specifically, I think B tier spot is a good spot for them. Now Synthesubs, that's an easy S tier. PvP, they're annoying. You lunge like crazy. It's really hard to hit Titans that are using them. PvE, they got buff with glaives. It's also still really good to run a hammer build with them. You just get so much damage for your melee. On top of that, you get that bonus super damage too, which is good. Very, very strong. Very, very good. Overall, one of the best Titan exotics in the game. Now we have Ursa Furiosa. Ursa Furiosa is exotic. You can basically block with your shield, and the more damage you take with your shield on your Void subclass, you get super energy back. These are very good in Grandmaster level content. A lot of people don't use them anymore because people just kill stuff now. You don't really have to worry about survivability as much anymore in the game. But back when Grandmasters first came out, a lot of people ran these. They're even good in things like day one raids if you just need to, make sure your team stays alive. The super will also provide a damage buff when you're standing behind the shield too. So overall, I think it's good. I don't think it's as good as it used to be, but A tier spots are a really good spot for him. Now Worm God's Caress. This is another S tier exotic. This is kind of acts the same way since subs. They did nerf these. They're still really good if you play into a glaive build. Even the hammer build, they're still really, really strong. I definitely think I can see the argument moving them to A tier now since they did get nerfed. Well, I think I will keep them at A because most people are just going to run Synthesubs in the first place because they're all pretty much on the same par as this. You don't have to get 5 melee kills. But they are still really, really good. But that is my Titan tier list. I'm sure a lot of the comments are going to happen talking about how I ranked stuff in weird spots. But again, this is just my opinions. You can obviously have different opinions. And if you do, be sure to let me know in the comments. We can start a conversation down there below. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. If you all learned anything new, consider subscribing, drop a like, turn notifications on. Also, if you'd like to join my Discord, follow me on any of my socials, all of that will be linked in the description below. But just know watching this video is way more than enough, and that every single bit of support from you all is truly appreciated. Thank you all so much for watching this one, and have a great day. Peace.